Welcome, Katrina, to the Root of Our Health. It is such a pleasure to have you on the show. Thank you so much for taking your time.
Absolutely. My pleasure.
Great. Well, let's just dive right in. Why don't we start by having you tell us about your background, and please do tell us about your own personal story at this time.
Yeah, thank you for that. So I didn't plan on getting into working with cancer or even, the nutritional health space at all. I was a Pilates instructor, have a successful Pilates studio and business, but then I got my own cancer diagnosis, and that just radically shifted everything for me. For us, we had already started to do some work on using food as medicine to heal some other issues that our family had experienced, and had seen amazing dramatic results to where when I got that diagnosis, for me, it was a no-brainer. That is exactly, I wanted to continue pursuing food as medicine and see what we could do naturally. Because for me, and this is not judgment on anyone else, like the traditional oncology approach didn't resonate with me. And I really wanted to try to go natural, which is what we did. And I was successful using functional medicine to look at all the different areas of what was going wrong with my body that allowed my immune system to be completely overwhelmed so that it wasn't able to address the rogue cancer cells that then proliferated into a tumor. So I'm super excited about, obviously my experience, but then that snowballed into, oh my goodness, I have to share this because people need to know there's other options out there. And so I became a practitioner and, went on to do the work that I'm doing now with other clients.
Thank you so much for sharing, your own story. And I have to say, yes, a lot of people kind of are not on the same approach, right? The functional
Mhm.
medicine, the food is medicine, food is information, food is healing.
Mm.
Obviously, it's certain types of food that we're going to be, talking about in just a bit. But I'm definitely because I am into functional medicine. That is the approach that I take as well. Anything that we can do, sure, technology is out there. Sure, that's what it's for, but it's not always the answer. It is not always the answer. We have to understand our bodies are capable of healing themselves, right? So it's
Exactly.
only, right? So it's only how we, um, how we help our bodies and not hurt it.
Mhm.
So food, all of the good stuff, exercise, things, mental health obviously plays a huge role too. All of that we're here on earth to utilize the natural sources that it's given to us. And our bodies crave that. And yes, again, there are some instances that would have to go down the either medicine route or the oncology route or the hospital route, all of that. But it's not the end all, right? There are, again, this is why I have this podcast, is because it's alternatives.
Mhm.
These are alternatives, things that we can take on our own and heal ourselves. So thank you again for sharing that. A perspective that definitely is not out there, but should be. That definitely should be out there. So, uh, we're talking about cancer here. And I told you a little bit, in the beginning before we hit record that cancer is actually front and center in my life. I don't have it, but my dad passed away from melanoma cancer. My
Mm.
mom, she passed away, but not of cancer, but she did have breast cancer. And she did have, not melanoma, but skin tumors. So they weren't cancer. But I have cousin that passed away from cancer, aunt that passed away from cancer,
Mm.
another aunt that passed away from a heart condition due to cancer. So, cancer is prevalent in my family, which is why I am personally on high alert to take
Mm.
care of my own self, and not to, to do whatever I can to avoid going down that path.
Yeah.
And the latest thing that I did was gone completely sober. I hear how alcohol plays a huge role in breast cancer, and coming from a mother that had it, why am I going to do something that's really not fun anymore, and be closer to getting that diagnosis versus just cutting it out and just saying goodbye. So that's what I did. But however, when we get, and I'm saying we in terms of a general population, when we get the diagnosis of cancer, we know what it is, right? We know, okay, it's stage 4 melanoma, it is breast cancer, it is colon cancer, things like that. But can you tell us why we have cancer? Like what contributes and why we have cancer?
Oh, yes, exactly. I'm so sorry to hear all of that in your family, but you are set up in a brilliantly perfect way to be able to do this work ahead of time proactively so that you can avoid that, which is when you can look at it early, it's easier. And I mean, you're just so set up well. So let's backtrack. There are 10 areas that we have identified in research that are known to drive cancer. And so the method that I use, the program that I have, we look at all 10 so that we can get all the smoking guns on the table. So when we're talking about, active cancer, we're looking at those to see like what were the areas that together created this perfect storm to allow the cancer to develop. When we're looking at it, beforehand, proactively, preventatively, we're looking at it of what is brewing. But it's the same technique, it's the same methodology, the same testing. It's just easier when you haven't crossed that diagnosis. There is a tumor threshold. And you just want to remember, and this is for your audience, because I think you probably are fully understanding this, and maybe your audiences as well, that the tumor is a symptom. The tumor is not the enemy. It's not the one thing that we need to focus on in terms of like, let's get it gone, let's kill it, let's remove it, let's whatever. It's these other things in the background that allowed the body to miss this that we want to really dig into and look at. So looking at the functional testing, listening to your symptoms, and doing huge health history and detective work into seeing what are the areas for you. Because I'm going to tell you a little secret. Like my clients, they come in, they're well educated. They've done the low hanging fruit. I have never had a client that comes in eating a standard American diet. They've done this stuff, but there's things that they just don't know about. There's tests they haven't run. There's exposures to toxins and things that they have no idea about that are contributing, because it's not going to be one thing that causes cancer. And that's the problem our society is having. They're looking for one thing. And even in alternative care, when they find one thing, they think they've got it. It's not one thing. It's usually like 6 to 8 of these 10 areas that together create this perfect storm that allows your body to be derailed.
Okay. Well, you just mentioned 10, so can you go into more specific detail of what these 10 things are?
Absolutely. I would love to. So, I mean, we could talk for hours about any one of these things. These are big containers, big topics. So, what I'll do is I'll run through the 10 and give you a little overview. And any that you want to dig into deeper, we definitely can.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, the first one, and this is kind of, in my opinion, the biggest one, is the metabolic issue. So, this has to do with blood sugar regulation. And a lot of people at first glance are like, no, I don't have issues with that, because you don't feel bad when you have blood sugar dysregulation. That was me. But what we know from Otto Warburg's Nobel Prize back in the 30s is that the defining factor of cancer is that metabolically in the mitochondria, things have shifted. And at the Krebs cycle level, they are not burning fuel the same way in a cancer cell. So we need to work on addressing that as well as the big picture of the rest of the body. The second is hormones. So I'm talking here sex hormones as well as the thyroid hormones. And when these are off in either area, they can definitely promote and encourage cancer. The microbiome. So this is your gut. Has to do with digestion as well as, the good gut flora, as well as are there any pathogens going on there? Angiogenesis is number 4, and that has to do with back with the metabolic thing. I mentioned that the cancer cells need to have more blood sugar because they're broken metabolically. So they actually create their own blood vessels. And that process is called angiogenesis. So when it does that, then it can get more blood sugar to fuel its proliferation and growth rate. And we don't want that. Stress. So this is looking at the adrenal hormones and the circadian rhythm, as well as just generally like what kind of stress is your body under? Are there are other things, whether, we're talking about a divorce, a death in the family, the stress of a new wedding, as well as physical things that are stressing your body out. And probably one of the biggest areas is the environmental toxins. And this I find is usually the area people aren't looking at. They don't really know what to look or how to look at it. And this is where they get blindsided. For me, this was a huge, massive mold infection. We had moved into a moldy house 8 months before my diagnosis, and I had no idea that mold was a driver of cancer. But also heavy metals and then non-metal chemicals as well. The next is epigenetics. So most people think that genetics is driving most cancer. And that's what you hear people talking about all the time and worried about, BRCA genes and such. But what we know now is that there are genes that are low penetrance that have a huge ability to be turned on and off by your diet and lifestyle. And so we want to really use those to our advantage to make sure that we are optimizing how we deal with these toxins and things in our environment. The immune system is number 8. And this is where our body should be addressing cancer. And oftentimes it is either malnourished, so we don't have, like, say, vitamin D, insufficient amounts, or, there's some autoimmune conditions and things that are derailing it because it's all flared up. Number 9 is inflammation. So with cancer, there will be a lot of inflammation. And these are markers that we're actually going to be looking at to watch and see if things start to go sideways or progress. And you can see it way before you're actually going to see like tumor expansion and development or metastasis and things. And the last one, and the thing that people probably overlook the most, is the mental emotional component. So what we know is that in the year prior to a cancer diagnosis, there's usually some kind of a trauma that has deeply hurt the cancer client's heart. Again, this could look wildly different depending on the client. Sometimes they know it, and, oh yes, my father passed away. Sometimes they have no idea, and it takes years to get them to a place where they can actually open up and deal with the issue. But knowing that, it gives us some direction to make sure that we look at it and we try not to do the ostrich of just, pretending it doesn't exist, because this can contribute to the overall load and is very easy to brush aside with all the protocols and, procedures that you're doing with the cancer diagnosis.
Awesome. Thank you so much for going through them. I did, I don't know if you can tell, but I was writing down all 10 just because, yes, I definitely want to dig in to a few of them. But first off, I noticed that there can be some correlation with these as well, like together. For example, you mentioned microbiome and then immune system. The gut definitely houses most of our immune system. So when the gut is out of whack, then of course, your immune system is the same, it's compromised,
Absolutely. And with
right?
these areas, like you said, I mean, we like to put the body in these little compartments and the different
Yeah,
systems and things, and it doesn't really work like that. The
right,
body is constantly interacting and dynamically shifting. And, if your thyroid hormones are off, it's going to affect your gut. It's going to
right.
affect your sex hormones. So there's all these other interactive aspects and how your body works. So yeah, we're trying to compartmentalize for our own understanding, but the body's way more complex than that.
Of course, of course, and we all know that. So then I guess the question that I have is, you mentioned, well, number one, obviously metabolic. So things that we can change, right? I'm kind of gonna skip around here because that's how my brain works. But
That's fine.
environmental toxins. Okay, so yes, we can definitely control the environment in terms of the mold issue, even like mercury if we're eating too much, like white fish or tuna fish. We can definitely control that, get rid of that. We can control most of what our water is, with filtration systems, other things. But there are toxins that are in the, like plastics. Also, we can definitely control that. But there are other things in the environment that is definitely coming at us in terms of
Mhm.
toxicity. But this is not really a question. This is more or less a kind of you know a statement. Whereas just because we can't control some of the environmental toxins, the ones that we can control is lowering our toxicity levels. So we're not going to be 100% toxic free, but whatever we can control can definitely be a start, right? It's something
Yes.
that we definitely have to get to, uh, the lifestyle change, all of that. Um, the metabolic
Yeah.
piece. Yeah, go ahead. If you want to
Like,
add, please do.
yeah,
Yes.
absolutely. The toxins are such a passion of mine. So, like you said, there's toxins everywhere and we can't avoid it. And this is where we want to be very strategic because most of my clients, when they come in, they're already avoiding most of this stuff.
Right.
They're not drinking out of water bottles and, these kinds of things. So we want to be very specific. So the tests that I run, you can see this are in there. And then it becomes a matter of, we want to stop the inflow as much as possible. So let's dive in and do the detective work of where is this coming from? And I've
Hmm.
literally was talking to someone yesterday going over this, and she's like, but I've done this. And I'm like, yes, exactly. So I'll tell you a story. I had a client, she tested super high in benzene, kind of obscure. Yeah, it's in like, the it's like a automotive exhaust kind of a thing. And which is fine. Like that sounds not crazy, but what you want to understand is that she lived out in the middle of nowhere. Like she had no roads near her. There were no flight patterns. We had tested her water. It was not there. And we're like, oh my goodness, where in the world is this coming from? And it was really high. And this is a
Yeah.
known, issue. So we were praying about this, like, where in the world is this coming from? About 2 weeks later, her tailpipe falls off. She goes and takes her car to the dealer and they put it back on. And he's like, oh, by the way, and I'm going to mess this up because I am not a mechanic, but
It's
some
okay.
some pipe that was going up, from there had holes in it, which is kind
Mm.
of weird. Maybe because she had all these, dirt roads and stuff, but it was shuttling the exhaust into her cabin. Not so high that she could smell it, but so she was constantly being exposed every time
Yeah.
she drove.
Yeah.
Like you
Yeah.
can't
You
make this
wouldn't
stuff up. It's
know.
crazy. And no one would know this. And so
Yeah.
this is the kind of stuff that I have happening all the time with clients of when we put our detective hat on and try to figure out where the stuff is coming from because people are getting the low hanging fruit. But when you have the testing in front of you, you know where to focus on to really dive in deep to fine tune for you.
Yeah. Yeah. What an amazing story. Because yes, you definitely don't know these things.
No.
It's it's kind of, yeah, I had a story way back in the day where there was raw sewage coming in from it was not
Mm.
a good situation, but I was like, oh, well, thanks for telling me. But going back, so you mentioned tests, and again, I'm kind of going all over, but I heard you mention tests. Um, what is this like specific tests that any doctor can do, or what tests are you doing in order to get to some of the results that you're seeing?
Absolutely. So most MDs are not using these tests. I do a very large blood chemistry panel that's covering a lot more than a typical doctor would look at, which of course they could run all the blood work if they wanted to. And I'm using functional ranges, not the lab ranges, so that we can actually see where people are healthy and what we're aiming for, which is very different than the lab ranges. Totally different topic. I'm using Dutch tests to look at the sex hormones and the adrenal hormones. I'm using GI maps and such for looking at the stool to see what's going on in the gut. I'm looking at either 3x4 or nutrition genome for the low penetrance genes. I'm looking at usually, well, it's now mosaic or vibrant to look at these different tox panels and oat panels and such. Um, I feel like I missed something, but those are some of the tests that I'm using. And yes, a functional trained practitioner would be running these same things. It's a matter of looking at them in context with each other and in context of cancer that might be a little different.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, I'm all for the test no guess. So
Mhm.
whenever anybody brings that up, I would love, my audience to understand because, they're not all going to a functional medicine doctor or
Mhm.
practitioner. So if they can ask their doctor or maybe order it online or go see a functional medicine practitioner, at least they're knowledged with what type of test they are looking for, and instead of
Totally.
shooting in the dark. So thank you.
I'm going to give
Um,
you a step
yeah,
further there, Elizabeth. So I have a
please.
brand new ebook that is hot off the press. Sorry,
Yes.
pun joke intended there. That I would be happy to give you the link for that actually mentions all these tests as well as all the different areas. And it goes in with even some of the blood markers specifically, because I really feel like it's important for people to not guess. They need to know what they're looking for. And that information is not out there. So yeah, I'll drop that for you.
Awesome. Yes, 100% agree. Would love to have that link. I'll put it in the show notes. But if you, yeah, we'll talk off, or you can list it, at the end, and we'll definitely have that linked up. So, but getting back to the 10, so I want to kind of go back. I mean, all of these obviously is what I tend to always focus on: hormone, stress, metabolic, immune system, inflammation, mental and emotional. I mean, all of these things make up us as a human being, as you said, as a system. But I want to take one out and kind of talk a little bit more in depth, only because I think, again, as you said, this is kind of a low hanging fruit, meaning this can be, done or corrected today, right? We can do something leaving this episode with a to do, and hopefully get into a better state. And that is the metabolic. So we
Yeah.
talked about blood sugar, right?
Mhm.
So how do people know if they have a blood sugar problem? And then obviously to the flip side of that, how do they, reverse it?
Yeah. Oh, I love this. So here's the tricky part about this. And blood sugar issues, I'm being very vague because there's a huge gamut and range of that. This is super epidemic in America. And this is the root cause of all of our chronic disease. So, yes, we're talking about cancer, but this is the same thing that's driving diabetes, heart disease, Alzheimer's. And that one's near and dear to my heart because my parents are dealing with it. My dad's in a facility now, can't walk. I mean, it's awful to watch. So, addressing this early and thoroughly is super important. And it goes completely against the grain of what people are telling us to do nutritionally and what is available. So it's really important to be well educated about this. Now, in terms of what you would know, like most people, this is the area I have to really dig into the test. This is the cheap and easy test. I usually rely heavily on the hemoglobin A1C, not a fasting glucose. I mean, that's helpful too, but the hemoglobin A1C is my favorite marker. And that's going to give you an idea of the last 3 months average blood sugar. So you kind of get a feel of what are they doing on the whole. Now, the reason I say it's tricky is because when you have messed up blood sugar, high blood sugar, you don't feel bad. You
Mm.
feel really good because you've got lots of blood sugar and energy running around, right?
Yeah.
It's the low blood sugar that makes you feel bad, like people think about in terms of, I'm hangry, I'm irritable, I'm shaky and lightheaded. That's not what we're talking about. Like, that's an issue you need to deal with, but that's not what's going to be driving cancer. It's the highs. And then some people are double dipping. They're going high and then dropping too low. And that definitely needs to be addressed as well because you're getting that high spot. But the high is what is causing the damage and the problems. So with that, this is something that is 100% reversible with diet. So first off, I want to state, I want to really focus with my clients, especially when we're talking about cancer. We're not going to be introducing toxins into the food. So we want to have it super uber clean. So grass finished in terms of the meats and everything, no preservatives and all that kind of stuff. But you're wanting to do a low carb diet, and I call it a low insulin diet because it's really not about the carbs. It's about their effect on the hormones. And I want people to keep that first and foremost. So this isn't like a gimmicky thing. I just really want people to understand and focus on it's the insulin reaction. And just because things have a little carbs here or there, it's very bio-individual how their body is going to react with the insulin production. And this is important for, even something like weight loss. If there's a lot of insulin going around the body, you are not going to lose weight. It's just not possible because insulin is also sending that signal to say, do not let fat out of the cells. We have enough energy. So when we're talking about, most dietary guidelines, eat carbs all day long. And it's like, no. So also on that note, skipping meals intentionally, as long as you don't have hypoglycemia, that low blood sugar, which this would make it worse, but doing intermittent fasting, getting your eating window smaller. Even I work my clients into, doing 1 day or prolonged days fasting. Like this is going to get you not only where your blood sugar is in a better place, but get you into what's called autophagy so that your body is put into gear to actually do a self cleanup. And, it doesn't have all the digestive work, right? So it's like, oh, what else are we going to do?
Mhm.
And that's where, a lot of those cancer cells that are running around rogue in everybody's body get cleaned up. And oh, wait, it's free because you're not eating. So there's a lot of things that you can do. I just encourage people, depending on where you're at, looking at the hemoglobin A1C is really powerful. I like my clients to have it under 5. And that usually takes some work, and if you're dealing with other issues, like, we mentioned the mold will screw up your blood sugar. So you can be doing everything right. You can be
Yeah.
fasting for a week and still have messed up blood sugar if there's stuff like mold going on. So just know that if it doesn't work with, doing it on your own, a lot of times there's other areas that somebody can help you with.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's great advice. Some things that is out in the world right now, meaning we gotta, and it's going along with the carbs. It's the simple carbs, the breads, the sugars, all of that. I mean, it's certain things that we don't obviously want to pack on a lot of, eating more, protein rich and, kind of plants as well. But it's the breads, it's the rice, it's the pastas, it's
Yeah.
the sugar, the cakes, the candy, the all of that stuff that that's a recipe for disaster. And of course, what is cancer like? Cancer loves sugar.
Yep.
Feeds
And
off
with
of
that, a
sugar.
lot of people are thinking sugar. I don't eat candy. That's not
Well,
what I'm
right.
talking about.
That's exactly.
That's the like, duh, of course,
Yeah.
everyone knows that. Like if you're popping candy, like don't even talk to me. But we're talking, like you said, all the carbs, and I'm
Yeah.
even talking some of the starchy carbs. If we're talking about cancer clients, not only do I want to get their hemoglobin A1C down, I want them to be in therapeutic ketosis where they're dropping
Yeah.
ketones. And this is critical for them to really stimulate the apoptosis and such and get that autophagy. So the apoptosis is the cell stimulating its own death, and with cancer cells they stop doing that, so we want them to die, and so we need that. But this is really important. And this looks, people ask me all the time, what does that look like? So for my cancer clients, it looks like they have a plate of vegetables, which may surprise people because I just said that, carbs are in all the vegetables and fruit and stuff, but I want the low carb veggies. That is where you want your carbs to come from. And
Yeah.
that's going to have all this fiber that is going to help your microbiome flourish. It's going to have the phytonutrients. But I'm not talking about a whole lot of fruit, with the exception of maybe the awesome berries. I'm not talking about even root vegetables. I really want the brassica and the cruciferous vegetables, and that is where the nutrient density really is. Now, on top of that, I don't want steamed broccoli. I want broccoli with beautiful hollandaise or butter or something on top of it. This is your conduit to hold the fat. Because who wants to eat a spoonful of even avocado oil mayonnaise? Like, that's gross. So you want to use your vegetables as something to hold your fat, to make it, and it makes the vegetables taste amazing.
Yeah.
And then for cancer clients, I mentioned earlier, you want good quality, but you want a moderate amount of protein. The keto, especially the dirty keto that's out there, it is like you're having burgers with cheese, with bacon, and it's like, that is way too much protein. Because if you have too much protein at one meal, your body can actually turn that protein into carbs.
Mm.
Literally, it can raise your blood sugar and throw you out of ketosis by a process called gluconeogenesis. And I've told my kids that they have to know how to spell that word in order to graduate high school. So it's really important to get the macros right for cancer. When you're talking pre-cancer, just prevention, you don't have to get quite as anal retentive, but these are the general guidelines that you want to still look at.
Awesome. Awesome. Yeah, no, thank you. It's rightfully so. We're talking specifically if you have a cancer diagnosis, or at least, something to maybe think about to prevent, cancer. Keto is it's not it's not for everyone, but it is if you have a certain, if there's certain things that you want to avoid or like diminish in terms of cancer.
Yeah, it's
Um,
a therapeutic diet, and it's
right.
got a time and a place. And for my clients, once they're done cancering, they're not, they're in remission and stuff, then we cycle out and stuff. But I still want the nutrient density. I still want the
Oh, yeah.
general macros and such. But yes, I want them to have metabolic flexibility where they're cycling in and out. The problem comes in because when I started this, and I had my cancer journey, it was before keto exploded. And now
Right.
it's great that it's out there, but at the same time, there's so much misunderstanding, and people are like, oh, I tried that. And I'm like, okay, there are certain areas that people get messed up with, and they're doing keto poorly, and they're not getting into it in the right way. Because think about it, we're going to eat 80% of our calories as fat all of a sudden when you haven't been doing that. And if your fat digestion is not like spot on, you are going to feel all sorts of bad, especially nauseous. If your electrolytes are not being replenished, especially at the beginning when you're transitioning, you are going to feel terrible. And so you hear about the keto flu. My clients don't get keto flu for the most part because I'm guiding them in it in a healthy way. And that's the problem people have. It's not that keto is bad for people. It's just people are doing keto bad, which is the problem.
Awesome. Yeah, and then conjunction with the intermittent fasting, I mean that I
Yes,
know firsthand is powerful and very effective. Very effective.
extremely. And
Extremely
that's a
effective.
lifelong strategy that people can continue to integrate it and keep it mixed up. That is cheap. It's easy,
Yeah.
and you combine that with more high quality, expensive foods when you are eating. And it doesn't disrupt the budget as much as people think.
Right. It's like an even out, right? It
Mhm.
evens things out. You're not eating as much, or you're eating in a, smaller window. But you're also eating quality, nutrient dense, like you said, foods in order for them to really do their job versus all of these foreign ingredients and foreign things that we're putting in our bodies, that our bodies are like, I don't know what you're doing to me, but I'm going to attack you. And that's what people think. They think that our bodies are attacking us when really, no, it's you attacking it. So,
Mhm.
yes, quality, love the grass fed, pasture raised, as much as you can, organic. Obviously not everything has to be organic, but there are certain foods that are highly pesticide. And, I would also caution on making sure that you also clean, whatever you can, rinse whatever you can in a good bath of what is it? Uh Apple cider vinegar, excuse me.
Yeah.
So yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And when we've done the toxin testing, you can see like, is the glyphosate, are the other herbicides and pesticides that
Yeah.
are high for you? Like, is this like, oh, this is the battle you need to pick? Or is it like, okay, well, yeah, just go for the dirty dozen, clean 15, you're good.
Right.
And by prioritizing, by doing the testing, you can really see where you need to zoom in on and focus because it's different for every client. Although overall, yeah, you want to eat organic, sometimes it's not as important in some areas as it is for others, depending on what your tests show up, which is really powerful.
Got it. Got it. Are there specific foods? I know that you mentioned, grass fed, other things like, and the cruciferous vegetables. Is there anything like in addition to that? Obviously, you want to keep the fats high. What kind of fats are you talking about? Obviously, the good
Yes, yes.
fats.
The fats are really important. And this is
Yeah.
where our society has it so wrong because
Yeah.
you have to be very intentional nowadays to get good quality fats. So things that are, more of the saturated fats, you only want to use saturated fats for cooking. So that means things that are solid at room temperature, coconut oil, butter, lard, tallow, that kind of thing. Heavy cream. Heavy cream's not solid at room temperature, but that's a separate issue. Um, then you want to use a lot of the monounsaturated for, things like salad dressings and general, oils and such. That's going to be my favorite is the avocado oil, but you've got the olive oils and different things. What you really want to be careful with is the polyunsaturated. Those are super delicate and they go rancid very, very, very easy. I love stressing that because it's so people don't get it. So when you like take a whiff of some of those that have been processed, the Google it. The process that they take that canola oil or the vegetable oils or soy oil to take them to make them so they're not like they're going to make you throw up on contact, the bleaching and deodorizing and all this stuff, it is horrible. They are so sensitive to light and heat and air that the least exposure will lead them rancid. So if you're going to eat those, and I recommend, especially for the omega 3s, that's imperative. You want to make sure that you get high quality. If it's an oil, it's going to be in a dark glass container that's refrigerated. If it's not, don't touch it. Eat the salmon, that kind of thing. It's going to have those already naturally in it. The flax seeds, don't buy it ground up. It's already rancid. It's had the air exposure and stuff. Grind it yourself just get a little coffee grinder that's not for coffee, things like that. But there's a lot of ways that you can do this. Personally, those saturated and monounsaturated are where the majority of my calories and my clients' calories come from. And then those polyunsaturated are going to be very strategically, but you just want to be really careful with them.
Okay. So like very minimal, not minimal to moderate. Is that
I,
what I'm hearing?
you know what, honestly, I like my clients to have a wide variety because variety is
Okay.
the key there to get the different profiles of the nutrients and such. So it's not necessarily how much of any one thing, I mean, we want 80% of the diet, but with those, it's just, they've got to be high quality, because
Yeah.
this is the area that if you're eating those polyunsaturated fats, those toxic industrial oils, those are like pouring gas on the fire of inflammation in your body. And that is the quickest way to like blow up cancer, by eating all those. And here's the thing. I can't say this enough. If you go out to eat, you are eating those. Because as
Mm,
a restaurant, it's a business and they have to use the cheaper oils. And let's
yeah.
just face it, the heart association and stuff are saying that those are actually good for you, which is a whole nother conversation. But, so if you have like mayonnaise or salad dressing or something, everyone goes out to eat and they have a salad to be healthy. What is on there?
Yeah.
Nasty canola oil salad dressing. It's disgusting.
Yeah.
So bring your own salad dressing, but that's the problem with the restaurants. They're cooking everything in those terrible cheap oils.
Yeah, no, I'm right there with you. I don't go out to eat a lot, but when I do, you better believe I'm going to be one of that person to be like, "Oh, well, I don't want dressing on this. Can you just give me a side of olive oil and balsamic vinegar in a cup so
Mhm.
I can go or, glass hopefully, so I can, just sprinkle it on myself because
Yeah.
rightfully that you just said that. And then that's the thing. Like we know, well, you and I know the average American out there does not know that most, if not all, of their food in restaurants is being cooked in these oils, which is
Mhm.
rancid, which is toxic. So it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate, but that's why we do what we do, so we can arm our clients and listeners and everybody else, like, okay, just know that if you're going 5 days a week to a restaurant, even if it's not fast food,
Yeah,
yeah, even if it's like 5 star, they're more than likely using
exactly.
canola oils or the vegetable oils that are industrialized, right? So they're
Yeah.
not really, they're there because it's cheap, cutting
It is
corners.
cheap. It is cheap. And there's one restaurant here in Scottsdale that we went to last night, Sapiens, that uses all the good stuff. But it's really hard to find
Yeah,
those kinds of high quality where they're serving grass finished meat and things like
yeah.
that. I mean, it's not profitable. And I just love this restaurant. I'm like, I hope they don't go under, because I understand their profit margins are like, um, but I
You're like, I'll
appreciate
give you
it.
more money. Here, please, just stay open.
Exactly. Be
I'm
there
like,
for me.
be here. I'm telling like 10 of my friends. We can all go,
Yeah. So
like
everyone that's listening, go to Sapiens.
well, yes, if you live in Scottsdale, hopefully they'll have a chain. Well, if they have a chain, then that kind of ruins the thing. So let's not do that. But yeah, it's just more or less understanding what things are being cooked when you are not cooking them yourself. So being on high alert and taking control in terms of when you are cooking things yourself. Yes, coconut oil. Love me some coconut oil. All of the good stuff, avocados, nuts, tallow. I haven't had tallow in a while, but all of those things, things that again are natural in its purest form, without being adulterated and handled. Just do it. Your health depends on it. So
Yep.
um okay, so we're talking now integrative methods, right? So integrative, and I know that's like a broad term. So if you want to go ahead and narrow in on it, but these obviously these approaches are sought out. So that's why I'm again this podcast is here, is because it's an integrative approach. These are things that are non-conventional, red light therapy, cold therapy, hot, heat, all of that. So how can somebody with cancer improve their healing with these integrative approaches or whatnot?
Ooh, I love this question. Okay, so for me, I work with all my clients remotely. So all over the US, clearly I'm not getting to, put an IV in them or something.
Yeah.
So we're using testing to see if this is an appropriate, what the appropriate therapies are for them. And what really drives me crazy is that so many different practitioners are just saying, oh, everybody should do this. Oh, everybody should do that. And it is wildly inappropriate. And I have seen many cases where it actually makes things worse and can lead to the downfall of somebody, meaning death, which just breaks my heart because I know the practitioner didn't mean to hurt them. And I know that the cancer client was trying to do good things. And this is where the testing is so, so critical because when you, it's also about saving you money because these cost a lot of money. So making sure you're wise with your dollars by seeing what is going to be the dial mover for that specific person. So you're not just chasing after everything. And then at the end of the day, there's the mental health aspect of, there's this game that goes on when you have cancer, especially in the natural health space of, did I do enough? Maybe this one more thing is the one that's going to cure me. But when you step back and say, okay, these are my, 5 drivers, does this help one of those areas? Is it appropriate for the state that my body is in now? A lot of times, we'll look and see, is this person in a catabolic state or an anabolic state? So that's a building up state or a tearing down state. And that can help us see which of the therapies are going to be helpful. As well as, running certain markers like your G6PD to see if like IV vitamin C is going to be a good thing at that point. But these are all adding up to make sure that we're not just, like throwing wet spaghetti on the wall and seeing if it sticks, because
Right.
that's what breaks my heart when I see clients doing that. So I use all of those different things and a whole lot more, the mistletoe and all these wonderful adjunctive therapeutic, and this is why they work really well for some people and then they don't work well for others. When you see them not working well, somebody has guessed and they guessed wrong.
Yeah.
Now when they worked well, they could have been guessing and just happened to guess right, or they just did the testing to see. And that's where the testing can really help you figure out what is going to be the best therapy for me. And this can be alongside standard of care. We were talking about the intermittent fasting, and there's a lot of evidence and research showing that chemotherapy is way more effective if you do it in a fasted state. So why is traditional oncology handing them cookies and juice in the oncology suites?
Yeah. Mm.
This is to me, this is like blatant malpractice. They should not be
Yeah.
able to do this. And that's what they're doing all day long. And it makes no sense. And, I'm just a little nutritionist. And I'm going, how in the world do I know this and you're not seeing this? Why are you
Yeah.
not looking into this more? And this is where I want to empower my clients and anyone out there. Like these are the questions you need to ask because, at the end of the day, we all need to be our own advocates and be looking into this and take ownership of the choices we make because there's a lot of choices and, you want to make sure you choose right when the stakes are this high.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's certainly very, very true and very important. Definitely. And that's again, keep bringing this up, but that's why we're doing what we're doing, right? We're having this
Exactly.
conversation only because we want the listeners and any clients and anyone just to have that education, have that knowledge, and understand that yeah, it is sad to see that in hospitals or in oncology, all of that they're feeding sugar, which they should know is going to feed the cancer.
Yeah.
So just it doesn't make sense. It doesn't, we're in a backwards system here, and
Hmm.
and it's not. It's and then patients think that it's their fault. They think that it's their fault that they're declining or that things are happening, and really it's not. So taking these integrative, whatever again the approaches, that work best, can definitely help heal in a faster, not even just faster, but just help heal.
Yeah.
It's, can I ask I don't know how to say a personal, but have you ever seen anybody in a stage 4 cancer get through or get like in remission?
Yes. It the usually the stage 4 that I see, they've been, left by the side of the road by standard of care and they don't have anything for them. And so
Right.
at that point, it depends on the client if they are able to do things. And a lot of times that type of client, what I have seen is they are in a state where physically they can't do a lot of the protocols.
Mm.
Um, in terms of like energy and mobility and things like that. There's also usually a lot of complications in terms of their will to live and their ability to fight. And this is the intangible thing that you have to be successful. And it drives me crazy because you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink. So, for example, I have a client that started with me in March. At the time of this recording, it's September. Did all the testing. We found all the smoking guns. This was all doable stuff. She still has not started her protocols. And I'm calling her. I'm working. Like, she just doesn't want to, like, I don't know. I don't understand that. And that's not going to serve her well. I can't do the work for her. And this stuff that we're talking about, it's not passive. It's
Yeah.
not take a pill and I'll see you later.
Right.
It's actively changing how you cook, what you cook, and monitoring it, and then changing and doing weird things like coffee enemas and infrared saunas. And I mean, depending on what shows up, some of those things can get, like a full-time job almost. There's a lot of pills to take. So this work is not for the faint of heart, but it is effective. And you keep
Yeah.
your hair and you end up healthier on the other side. You don't end up depleted. And the best part is that you end up with tools that you can use for the rest of your life. So, like for myself, I know my root cause drivers for my cancer, and those are the things that I'm going to be watching ongoing and monitoring. So, if one of them gets off, I can easily get it back in balance. And, it's going to take, 5 or 6 things for cancer to explode again. So I'm catching it way before it's an issue so that my body can continue to not only heal itself, but maintain itself in a proper way.
Yeah. Yeah. Does this go along with that mental and emotional piece at number 10?
Yeah, this is the like, and I ask it on my questionnaire, like, what are you fighting
Yeah.
for? What
Yeah.
is there?
So
And
why?
I'll have clients that, fill it out and they're like, yeah, I just don't want to die. And it's just like, okay, yeah, but are you going to do something about it? Are you going to fight
Right.
for it?
Right.
What is your reason for living? For me, it was at the time I had 5 kids. I'm like, I want to teach them to ski.
Yeah.
I want to see their weddings.
Yeah.
And that was that North Star of like, why am I doing all these crazy things? Why am I not just like kind of being lackadaisical and kind of doing it? No, it's like aggressive. I have a plan. I'm not letting a day slip by without making sure that I'm doing all the stuff that was on my protocol list because there's a reason.
Yeah. And that's exactly, thank you for sharing that, by the way. And that's exactly the thing that, as a health and wellness coach, that is the thing, the first thing that I ask in the first session is not only your vision of what you want to get out of this, but your why. And it has to go into that deep, deep, deep 7 layers, 8 layers sometimes if it's very superficial in the beginning. It has to get to the where they're, well, first of all, they have to be ready, right? It has to be, and forgive me, I'm not comparing, anybody, my clients to yours because they're in that state, they're in that,
Mhm.
cancer.
That's fine.
That's life, that's death itself. However, I think in general, health and wellness is live or die. Whatever
It
we do
is.
in our lifestyle is live or die. Like, are we going to take that step into hard doing, hard action because we want to live? And the reason why we want to live is for, children, grandkids, life itself, whatever that literal, deep down in that gut. Why? Because that is when things get tough and rough, and oh, I don't want to do this. This is too hard. I don't have any energy. Blah blah blah. I say to my clients, and you just said it. What would it look like if you had it? If you don't do this, what is the worst case scenario? And do you like
Yeah.
do you like that? Do you like that answer? No. Well, let's do something small. So having that, yes, you have to. There is a unfortunate, like, hard truth that that we have to put out there, that sometimes clients or anybody doesn't want to hear. But then at the end of the day, they also don't want to hear their cancer diagnosis either.
Right, exactly. And it's hard because, our society, the way our medical system is set up with, the insurance and everything, it's very much the doctor is doing it to me. Like,
Right.
people look at it as, if I get sick, I will go to the doctor and they will fix me. And that's the problem right now, is that we need to take ownership for our own bodies and our own choices. Every single bite you take is positive or negative. Like, it's that polarizing. I mean, there's some shades of gray in there, but it's not neutral. It's not
Right.
like just oh, if I don't think about it, it didn't actually affect me. It does. And every single thing you do during the day, like, is this contributing to my well-being? Is this stressing me out? Whatever your day is filled with, we all have choices, and people are like, oh, well, I have to do this. No, you actually don't have to do anything. You
Right.
can change your job. You can change your family. Maybe you don't want to. That's a separate issue, but you always have choices. And when we start to take ownership and acknowledge that we have so much more power, we live in America. Now, there are some issues and circumstances where you really literally don't have choices. But for the most part, when we say we don't have choices, it's just what we don't want to choose. And that's fine. That's your choice. But these are the things that we want to evaluate because, like you said, we're talking about any health condition. But with cancer, there's a ticking time clock, and it just makes it all more compressed. So, my job to help motivate and get the clients to do the stuff is just a little more of a time crunch, but it's the same exact spectrum. It's the same issues, no matter whether we're talking about just losing some weight. And I say just, that's a big issue for a lot of people, or, some arthritis that's uncomfortable, or we're talking about life and death cancer, or, something like Alzheimer's. These are all the same things, and the same bad choices are going to look different for different people, depending on how it plays out in their own body. But taking ownership of it is a huge piece that starts the whole thing.
Yeah. Stop playing victim. Definitely.
Exactly.
Obviously I'm getting all fired up and passionate over here because this just, yeah. But however, time is of essence. So, where can people, I could talk to you for so long, obviously, but where can people, find you, reach out to you, all of that good stuff?
Absolutely. So I'm going to give Elizabeth a link that your listeners can get a free ebook. Just have to let me know where to send it to. And it's the roadmap to prevent cancer recurrence. So it's talking about all these, 10 areas and the different tests and things so that you have more information on what we were talking about. My website is cancerfreedom.com. And you can find out more about my year-long program or working with me. On Instagram, it's at Katrina Foe, so just my name. And then Facebook, it's Nutritional Pilates. So, yeah, I would love to connect with any of you if you have questions about this, because a cancer diagnosis is super scary and overwhelming. And I remember it very, very well, how just completely alone you feel, because it's like, does anybody do this? It's very confusing and frustrating. So I very much empathize with that and would love to reach out and talk with you.
Beautiful. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Definitely will link all of that. And yeah, I'll reach out to you, or maybe we can, I'll write it down afterwards. But um, everything will be in the show notes. It'll be easy. Click on it, go right to website, socials, all of that in your ebook.
Thank you.
One last question that I have for you before I let you go is, what is a favorite quote or any words of inspiration you can give to me and my audience?
Ooh. Okay. So this is from my dad. He has this on his wall, and it always hope I get it right. So it's, some people look at the world and wonder why, and I look at the world and wonder why not. I think I messed it up a little bit, but yes, and I'm forgetting. I'm like seeing the picture in my mind. I'm forgetting who said it, but it's a fantastic quote about just that, looking for the positive and seeing the opportunities and everything, that just has set the stage for my whole life. So that's probably my favorite.
Nice. And I get it. I think you might have said it right. I don't know the quote itself, but it sounds like, people asking either that or it's a why me.
Mm,
And then, we're asking, well, why not? Like, why not me or why not? That is something that we definitely need to ask, is why not, as opportunities. And anything's possible. So, amazing. Thank you so much, Katrina, for being on here and for leaving us with those words and everything that you do in terms of helping, cancer patients and your clients and everything, getting to the root cause, finding alternatives, saying that there is a way and hope, and not just false hope, but actual hope, that they can get through this on the other side in a healthy manner and change their own lives because they are living differently. So, this is powerful. So thank you again for spending your like an hour and a little bit over Saturday with me and being on here with my audience. So thanks again.
thank you.
And to my audience, thanks for being here. And until next time, you are worth it.